Hello, everybody, and welcome into another Hockey Writers season preview show here on the YouTube channel. We're into our season previews like we've teased on the Hockey Writers podcast in the last couple of weeks, and we've got another writer here. We're doing the Seattle Kraken. Second year in the league. First year didn't go very well, but Sean Raggio's here. He had to suffer through that whole season writing about the Kraken and their struggles, and but there were some exciting times. Of course, joined in also by my co-host Kyle Knopp. All right, let's get started. The Seattle Kraken, like I said, didn't make the playoffs. They were towards the end of towards the bottom of the standings, but they got a pretty good consolation prize out of that. And the guy that was supposed to be first overall, and we'll talk about him in a second as well. Let's start with the forwards, though, and the new additions. Sean, let's talk about Andre Burakovsky and Oliver Bjorkstrand, who they signed Burakovsky and then acquired Bjorkstrand from the Columbus Blue Jackets. What are your expectations for these new additions to the Kraken?
Well, to start it off, they're going to add something that made some of us writers sound like a broken record last season: goal scoring. Hopefully, the Kraken will get more goals on the board, and a lot of that's going to be because of these two guys. Now, last season, it was just Jordan Eberle, Jared McCann, Yanni Gourde surpassing 20 goals. Well, last year, Burakovsky I'm pretty sure he hit 20. I know he had 39 assists, which is going to be great for some of these other scorers on the team. Bjorkstrand had 28 goals, and he's a 3-time 20-goal scorer. Now, I think that having these two offensive wingers is going to push offense further down into the lineup, which hopefully will give the team's depth a bit more chance to shine offensively because no one really was able to step up. Now, if you've read my writing, and you and I have joked about this, I'm a big Brandon Tanev fan.
Yeah.
He could provide more offense if he was healthy last year, more than you would expect from someone who's going to be a top contender for hits in the league. So giving him different line matchups now, or different line mates now because of the shift, I think that's going to help players like him succeed, where maybe he would have had to take more of a defensive role, and defense is a whole other conversation with this team. But even if Shane Wright and let alone Matty Beniers make the team, giving them these players winning experience on Burakovsky's side with his cup titles, and Bjorkstrand, I think he's just going to keep going up from here.
I love the signing of Burakovsky for the Kraken. I think this is an excellent weapon to add to their arsenal. And absolutely. I think he's going to provide not only in goal scoring, but the playmaking ability, like you mentioned. And then Bjorkstrand is just, like you said, 3-time 20-goal scorer. He's one of those deceptive punches that you don't really see coming. So I think this is huge for the Kraken. All right. You mentioned him. We got to talk about him. We're going to jump right into it. How will Matty Beniers impact the team in his first full season in the NHL?
So don't yell at me if this seems like a cop-out answer, because I don't think – because to me, these are two very important things the Kraken need. I'm going to call it the two E's: excitement and energy. Now, the credit to the fan base, because despite where the team was at, despite the moves they were making, and God still doesn't even know Ron Francis's plan as general manager. We have ideas, but we still don't really know. Now, he's going to bring, if the team starts out 2-15-3 through their first 20 games, I think that added up, and he has 15 points and 8 of them goals. That's going to excite a lot of people. I think he's going to bring energy to a lineup that's relatively on the older side. They have some young pieces, but you got guys inching towards 30, which we're going to get to later on in this, a couple of those guys. So to have that kind of energy for someone like Eberle, who you want, I think he's 32, to replicate another 20-goal season, I think that's going to be huge. And I can speak towards Wright with this as well. They're going to be the defensive anchors on their line. So I think that gives head coach Dave Haxtell a bit more flexibility in terms of who he wants to put on those wings, because the two-way prowess that he brings to the table is going to at least make you feel a little bit safer. There's going to be growing pains. He's a rookie. He's younger than me. He's younger than all of us. So you got to factor that in. No offense to us dating ourselves right here. Definitely adds some lineup versatility for his team as well.
Well, everyone knows I love Matty Beniers. He was one of my favorites. I wrote his prospect profile, and I loved him as a player. So he's going to be a heck of a guy in the NHL. He already has shown it towards the end of last season there, and put up a ton of points. So I'm expecting a lot in his rookie season. I think he'll be in the Calder Trophy conversation for sure.
Loved that profile, by the way. That was great throughout the year. So nice job there.
Yeah, I've seen a quote from it a few times in different places. So I reread it and I'm like, actually, that was pretty good. So not to, but yeah, I'll pat myself on the back. All right, you mentioned him as well, Shane Wright. What a surprise to get him where they got him. He was supposed to be first overall, and he went down to fourth. He kind of was expecting to go to the Montreal Canadiens, went to the Seattle Kraken. Does he have a chance? And I'm pretty sure I already know this answer because you've mentioned him a couple times already being a factor. Does he make the opening night roster?
I got to pat myself on the back real quick. I wrote a piece before the draft about him and how he should be a target, and then he dropped the fourth. If I ever should have put money on something, it should have been that. Selfishly, I want to see him there the whole year for some of the similar reasons as Beniers. Excitement, two-way play, earlier chance to build chemistry was another point, but we know he'll at least get his 9 games.
Yeah.
Right. I don't necessarily know if they decide to send him down, if going back to junior hockey is the best move for him. Whereas, especially, I think you'll have a couple other prospects now helping fill out the ranks of the Coachella Valley Firebirds in the AHL. So that might be a good spot for him. But I think that he could end up in the top 6 center role. One of the top 6 is, I think, by the end of the year. Well, let me say that, because they're going to be shuffling lines throughout the start of the year. They're going to be finding what works. Will Hackstall give a rookie first line center over a veteran? I don't know about that. I really don't know about that. But he'll get his 9 games. Hope the team is firing on all cylinders around him, and he makes enough of an impact to where they're going to just let him ride, work out the kinks now, and if he has a decent year, hope for a flaming hot second year.
For what it's worth, I think Shane Wright does make the opening night roster. Wow, there we go. And I think, with Canada, or him not going to the World Juniors with Canada, I think that was a big kind of telltale sign that the Kraken are really planning on him kind of being a big piece this year. So I think you're absolutely right, Sean. All right, talking about another young guy who I actually watched play at Sault Ste. Marie when I was working for the Saginaw Spirit, but Jared McCann. Will he continue to solidify himself as a legitimate top 6 forward, or is he going to regress in this second season with the Kraken?
This is a tough one for me because it depends on the team a little bit if he would be a top 6 forward on this team relative to a team like the Colorado Avalanche. I'm going to say yes, with the caveat that it all depends on what Hackstall wants to do with his lines. But if I was putting him into NHL 23, I would give him top 6 forward potential for sure. Now, here's an interesting tidbit. I want to tie in Bjorkstrand and Burakovsky. Now, they're all roughly the same age, and they all started hitting a career high and hitting their stride over the past 2-3 years, all at the same time. Now, it could be a pure coincidence, and now they're all on the Kraken, or this is what we should be coming to expect from a player like Jared McCann, let alone Burakovsky and Bjorkstrand. McCann had 27 goals, I think it was, on a team that could not score, a bad team that could not score. Now you add these 2 guys, take some pressure off him to be what maybe he was never supposed to be. I don't think he was supposed to be a leading goal scorer. If you want to contribute 27 and have 2 guys hit 30, sure. Take that in an instant. But it's similar, and we'll get to defense later, but it's similar to how I feel about Carson Soucy. He had a great year, led the team in defensive goal scoring, double digits. No disrespect, you don't want him leading your team in defensive goal scoring. That's just not. Now, I'd love it for McCann if he did it again, but the difference is now he doesn't have to.
Yeah.
And that's why I think that if he doesn't soar higher than where he was, I think that this is a nice, happy plateau for him, and especially with the cap hit he's locked in at.
Yeah.
That's going to be great for the organization and fans moving forward.
There's something about McCann, though. Ever since I saw him play it during his 16, 17-year-old year, I mean, the kid just has a heavy shot.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was NHL hard at 16, 17 years old. And I mean, he's just gotten stronger. So, I mean, he can unleash a cannon. Absolutely.
One more quick note on McCann. He was pissed off last year.
Yeah.
He was not happy with what happened with Pittsburgh. And that definitely fueled the fire. Will it be there this year? You never know how much that grudge will carry over. But if this looks like it's going to be an anomaly, I think that's part of the reason why.
Mm.
Okay.
Yeah, and I can speak to that hard shot too. Saw it in Vancouver in his rookie season, and I still am kind of angry that they traded him away because they traded him for nothing. So
I was waiting to see what you'd say when something like that came up.
It still bugs me that he's not in Vancouver right now, but that's a discussion for another podcast. All right, let's talk about some storylines or question marks going into this season with this forward group. I know it's probably quite a few, but what is the biggest one going into this season?
I would shine a spotlight on, can they score some goals? And again, I sound like a broken record, but I think it was bottom 5 in the league. Maybe I'm being a bit too generous with where I bottom 5 rather than bottom 3. I mixing up goals against and goals for there, but that's especially with a season like Grubauer had, that's not going to win you anything, and that was shown. Now, a little tidbit to the side of that is the power play. Power play, I think, is going to improve both with Justin Schultz coming in to help on the defense, which again we'll get to later. But now they have these two options on the power play. You have Beniers coming in full time, maybe Shane Wright. I'm on the Shane Wright's going to be their train, but I feel like for objectivity, I have to go with the maybe. So I think that it gives them a deeper power play options. Again, a lot of it's taking pressure off players. Yeah. That's one of the biggest things, which again, we will hit on later. So there's so much overlap with this team.
Yeah.
Because it was such a problematic team, which made covering a West Coast team on the East Coast so much fun. I was only partially sarcastic. I loved covering this team.
So you mentioned scoring as being the big storyline, the big question mark. And last year, looking at this team on paper heading into their inaugural season, there were a ton of question marks as to not only how they would gel, but how they would feed off each other and how they would play together and where that scoring would come from. Now that the team's kind of answered a few of those questions, where do you expect this forward group to match up with other teams in the Pacific heading into the 2022-23 season?
Ooh, I think that a bit of that depends on not just how their younger players have developed, but the teams around them. Mm-hmm. I mean, did anyone expect the Kings to push Edmonton to that 7 games last year? The Flames lost Matthew Tkachuk and Johnny Gaudreau, and boo-hoo, they just got a wagon of a team. And you still have the two-headed monster in Edmonton. It's the team doesn't have a superstar.
Yeah.
So that's gonna just by default put them down. I think I had them lower middle tier because you still have some mismatched pieces, mismatched pieces. You have players who could be easy starting players on another team that might be pushed out of the lineup or to fourth line roles. Ryan Donato is an example of a player who could score more in a better role, but because of how things look right now, he's not going to get out of the fourth line. Are you going to put Everly Schwartz on the fourth line to make room for him? McCann, to me, is a winger. They have too many centers who could play anyway. So they're middle lower tier. They're not quite the bottom, but granted, yeah, they're in that like 5-6, I think, if I had to split it down the middle.
Okay, that's fair.
That's fair. Yeah. And like I say, there's a lot of change that's happened in the Pacific this off season too. So a lot of upheaval, and it's going to be interesting to see some of these top teams, how they kind of go, especially Calgary, because like I said, even though they added Huberdeau and Pedri, you don't know if they're going to fit in with the group. I mean, it doesn't matter if they're good players, if they scored 85 and 100 points somewhere else. Do they do it again? I keep going. Louis Eriksson scored 30 in Boston and done nothing in Vancouver. So you can't expect that's what's going to happen and they're going to fit in. So,
and I mean, Kadri, the story, what he had to go through as a player, I didn't like it. Hearing this and seeing it, I'm a fan now, but objectively, that was an outlier season in his career. You need to see, granted at that point, it's a contract year. You're going to have to throw a blank check at him for the most part there. But you have to hope that carries over, that wasn't a one-time thing. I'm pretty sure he's on the wrong side of 30, which that happened when he was 27, 28. It's a different story than when you're in your early 30s in the NHL. That's getting faster every day.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's going to be interesting to follow for sure. You've mentioned it a few times, the defense. This is like, we meant team defense, but let's talk about the actual defense core. They got a couple new names. You already mentioned Justin Schultz, but I think this guy's a really underrated addition, Michal Kempny. He didn't play a lot last season because he was hurt, but he should be healthy coming into this season. I think this guy's going to be really good. What do you think about the additions of Justin Schultz and Michal Kempny?
I think that they're going to bring stability to this blue line that really needs a hand. It was interesting seeing how Dave Haxtell managed his defense, and I can speak for my co-writer on the Kraken team, Adam Kersenblatt, who just had no idea why he seemed to hate Hayden Fleury as much as he did. Fleury's gone now, so it looks to me like Kempney is going to be that 6th, 7th defenseman. I think he's fighting with Will Borgen for a slot there. Just stability, veteran experience. To me, championship and winning experience is a bit more important on my list than just being a veteran. And Kempney's a Stanley Cup champion. Schultz, Stanley Cup champion. I think twice for Schultz too. And
I believe so. Yeah, he was with both Penguins teams, right?
Yeah. So, Schultz will be a top 4, if not top pair. Depends on how it shakes up. I just think that to have a bunch of young pieces coming into this lineup. I know Kempney's only a 1-year deal, but still, you want players who've won, not just who've made it to the conference final.
Yeah,
it's different. I mean, it's one of those things you can't really put into words. I mean, I haven't won a Stanley Cup, just hoisted a ball hockey championship, but that's not the same thing. So that to me is one of the most important things. Hopefully, it'll bring some stability. If they play Kempney over Borgen, it might add some more stability. That was Borgen's first, real experience in the NHL. I don't think he spent any time in the AHL last year. But again, to me, the biggest thing is stability, because there was a lot of, for as many players that stayed, played consistently, there was that carousel of who was coming in, who was he sitting, why was he sitting them. Why does he hate Kale and Hayden Fleury? Who knows?
So last year, when this team was built, their defensive core is built around Giordano. Now he's gone. He's back in Toronto, stay another year there. Is this the year Vince Dunn finally emerges as a number 1 defenseman and someone that the team can begin to build around?
Let me preface this by saying I don't hate Vince Dunn.
But
the first note that I wrote is, to paraphrase, you said, is this when he emerges as a number 1 defenseman? And my response was, he better or he's traded. That's just where it's at.
That's fair.
I mean, he was I can give a little slack because Giordano was that defensive focal point last year. This is where he has to be the number 1. He has to drive the play. He has to move the puck. Secondary assists are only good for the stat sheet, but they're not going to help. It doesn't tell me anything. You just drop off the puck, go for a change.
Yeah.
Now he learned behind Alex Pietrangelo, Stanley Cup champion, as well with him. And now he had time to adjust to a new team, new system, get new chemistry while playing with Giordano being the focal point for most of the year. Mm-hmm. Now is the time he has to do it. Now is the time. If not, it's going to label him for the rest of his career. It's a contract year. He's RFA, $4 million right now. That's going down, I think. Yeah. He did tie a career high in points, but again, Adam wrote about it. It's secondary assists. It's telling, and I feel bad because I don't hate the guy.
No, not at all. Actually, I thought when the Kraken took Dunn, I thought that was a great pickup from St. Louis. I mean, everyone thought it was going to be Tarasenko, right? Everyone thought it was going to be Tarasenko, and then they took Dunn. And I remember thinking, that's actually a smart pickup for their future to kind of build around on that blue line. But I think you're absolutely right. This has to be the year that he takes over that number one role, or else he's not going to last very long there.
Yeah.
For the listeners and not the viewers, you see I'm like knocking on the door. Riker Evans knocking on the door.
Yeah.
He'll probably start on the AHL. I'm pretty sure he signed at the end of last year. So one way or another, I think Dunn's clock is ticking.
Yeah. Yeah. Then I like Riker Evans. He's going to be good.
He's going to be awesome.
Really good. Okay. So we talked about Vince Dunn being a question mark as this, but is there a bigger one? Is there a bigger question mark with this defense core going into the coming season?
I don't think so. Aside from I would group that with team defense and the penalty kill, which was abysmal. I think it was second to last in the league. It's really, to me, it's Vince Dunn, because aside from bringing in Schultz, who's going to ostensibly replace Giordano, and then you have Kempny essentially replacing Fleury, who's been rotating in and out. It's essentially the same decor. So not like you have 3 or 4 faces coming in. We got to see what clicks. Guys should be familiar with each other. There should be chemistry. And I'm hoping Schultz, let alone Kempny, frees up Dunn to just go make a mistake. If he starts 2-15-3, just please go make mistakes. I'm pretty sure he led the team in defensive turnovers last year. Dunn. I might be paraphrasing Adam's article incorrectly. Apologies for that. Big Adam fan, if you couldn't tell.
We all are here.
It's got to be Vince Dunn to me. He's going to be an X factor, whether it's good or bad.
Yeah.
So you talk about this defensive core being pretty much the same as last year with a few faces interchanged. Mm-hmm. So you gave the forwards about a 5th out of 8 in the division. Where does the defense match up with the other teams in the Pacific?
I'm going 7th or 8th. With that flexibility, just because you don't really know, who's going to come out of nowhere and make the Canucks, the Ducks, etc. You don't know how some of these younger players, like a Jamie Drysdale, is he just going to shoot to the moon and become the number one defenseman over Cam Fowler, Kevin Shattenkirk, etc. Some of those things you just don't know. A thing for me is they showed that they struggled defensively last year, so we know that that's already a question mark. I'm very concerned for their offensive production. I am. Again, no disrespect, Carson Soucy. I loved watching him score last year. He had like 1 or 2 2-goal games. I was like, this is fantastic. I love it. But, and if he wants to score 10 goals again, 10 plus, go for it. Just don't be the defensive goal scorer. You need guys to do their job.
Yep.
And Vince Dunn's job is to drive the play, whereas Jamie Oleksiak's job is to just crush people against glass, punch people in the face, block every shot, and just be a great defender. He's did pretty well at his job last year. I'm sorry, Vince Dunn. Just got to elevate that, get me some offensive production. Less pressure because of Schultz should help. but to me, it's still that bottom, especially the Kings really impressed me last year. And the Flames got this Uyghur guy who I heard.
Yeah, I heard he's okay.
Yeah, he's okay. But yeah, again, it will depend on how some of these younger teams kind of emerge with some of their defensemen, especially the Ducks. I think they're going to be interesting one to watch.
They're going to be a fun team to watch.
I'm so excited. Zegers
coming up too.
Yeah.
Olin Zellweger. Oh, geez. But yeah.
Yeah.
They're going to be really good. Okay, let's talk about the much maligned goaltending that was supposed to be good for the Kraken coming out of that expansion draft, having a guy that was nominated for the Vezina Trophy. It was a major problem. So if you don't know that, will Philip Grubauer, who is still the starter, and a tandem that is really unknown right now. So you got Martin Jones, Joey Daccord, Magnus Hellberg, three-headed monster as a backup. We'll talk about Driedger in a bit, but are they good enough to push this team to the playoffs?
I'm sorry, I'm going to cut a head off the monster right there. I don't think Hellberg is really going to be a factor. No disrespect to him, but last year they had Antoine Thibault, who bounced between AHL, ECHL, and I think that'll be Hellberg's role. Excuse me. He would need to play. He being Grubauer would need to play Shesterkin-esque, I think, with the team that is in front of him, unless it's one of those situations where they fire on all cylinders when they really shouldn't. He would have to be Shesterkin-esque, not trying to be biased based on the posters in the background. That's just how I see it. To be fair to Grubauer, I think he was massively overplayed. Driedger was out a couple times last season, and Joey Daccord only got into 5 games. That's just, to me, that's all on your head coach not putting you in a position to succeed, but he also really didn't stop the puck. I think he could have a bounce back year. He just needs to wipe the slate clean. Could he push him to the playoffs if the stars align and they grab that 8th seed by the thread that's available? He would be the reason for it.
I mean, if it's going off of their mask paint jobs alone, Joey Daccord absolutely deserves it because he's got some sick paint on his bucket. I mean, I saw a Twitter post the other day where it was up, and holy cow, that looks nice. So Matt just mentioned it, and I'm going to bring this up to you, Sean. How much are the Kraken going to miss Chris Driedger?
They're going to miss him a lot. And, the only consistency in net the Kraken have had is just the fact that Grubauer has been overplayed.
Yeah.
Consistency has been a big thing with me and Joey Daccord. He was up and down, up not playing, down, splitting it with, I think there were 7 or 8 goalies who saw ice the last year for the Charlotte Checkers. But when he was in there consistently in March, he was AHL's goaltender of the month.
Yeah.
So it's going to be imperative that he stays healthy once he gets back. But if head coach Dave Haxtell allocates the games properly, I think that they could weather the storm. And I'm putting an asterisk next to that because weather the storm for the Kraken could be winning one of every 3 games for span. But if they're at least playing well in front of him or whoever that backup is, then I think that's a good thing. I think that that's something they could build on. And at this point, they just want to keep building. That's all they really need to do right now. If your expectations are as low as I guess we're setting them, I don't. You just got to call it like it is sometimes, I
mean, absolutely. Yeah. Everyone loves a straight shooter, so might as well give it to him. So,
yeah. So you've mentioned the forwards. So you've been 5th in the Pacific, 8th for the defense. Where do you place the goaltending in this Pacific Division?
Yeah, I know I've been difficult with giving more ranges than actual numbers, but I would go roughly 4.5, like right in the middle of the pack. Okay. So will he be better? Even if he bounces back, will he be better than Jack Campbell? I'm not sure. John Gibson, I'm not sure. I literally forgot every single goalie who plays in the NHL right now except for Grubauer. Markstrom was the one I was looking at. I don't know. Demko, your boy up there, I think he's going to just keep getting better. Yeah. But then, Quick is getting older. Peterson, not necessarily the best year. I don't know what the hell is going on in Vegas. I know they got Logan Thompson.
And Brissett or whatever.
Aiden Hill now.
Yeah.
Who is it now?
Aiden
Hill was just traded today. So.
Oh, okay. I haven't put the morning skate together yet. So that will be in tomorrow's edition.
I'm Vegas. I'm skeptical about to begin with, but to me, I think that if he's playing up to his standards, he is better than half the division where they are. Prime Jonathan Quick, forget about it. But right now, I think that he's going to be that X factor for that reason.
Absolutely. And they brought Grubauer on because he was a Vezina candidate and he had that potential. Last year was a tough year. I mean, inaugural season, new team, just new everything, new experiences. Like, of course he's going to struggle a little bit. So I think that's huge. And watching how he bounces back is going to be a huge key to the Kraken success.
I could be a bit wrong on this, but it was either his most played season plus playoff games either equaled or was less than what he played last season. It was something like that. Either way, it was the most regular season games he played in his career. And halfway through the year, you could tell that he was getting overplayed. And I think that he had some fatigue, and that's natural. Like, you can't blame a guy in that situation. Like, I'm pretty sure even Shesterkin was in a similar situation in terms of games played, and I'm pretty sure he had a bit of a lull at one point as well.
Yeah.
So you can't blame a guy for that. It goes back to, that decision making of the head coach, which we could have a whole podcast on. That's what you want to get Adam for, because he will go in a bit harder than I have.
Well, and you said it yourself, there's that 200-300 headed backup monster ready to come in and help eat up some games to help Grubauer stay healthier. So I think they're at least in a good position to attack it this year compared to where they were last season. All right, we're going to move over to the quick fire round where Matt and I are going to throw some questions at you. Want you to pick a player and give us a 1 or 2 answer or a sentence answer to let us know, why you picked that player. So I'm going to start. 1 or 2 breakout stars for this season.
I'm going to go with 2. The first one is Matty Beniers, which is pretty evident. He scored in 9 of 10 games last year. And you're going to like this one, Matt. Brandon Tanev, not because of my extreme bias for this guy, or because of the great photo we have of him just standing up on the bench in our library. Got to for that. But because based on his stats last year, if he played an 82-game season, he would have scored 25 goals and over 40 points, both career highs.
Love it.
Oh, that's great. One player that needs to bounce back from last season.
Philip Grubauer in a big way. Just wipe the slate clean. Forget about last year. You're comfortable in the city now. Get to work.
Yep.
I didn't even know what you were going to say, but I had a feeling it was going to be.
I had a feeling that was good. Yeah.
That's why I just started nodding. All right. One player that could be traded before the deadline.
Vince Dunn.
Saw that coming.
Refer to past answers for the rest of that.
Vince Dunn. All right. One player that could be an X factor this season. I know you've mentioned X factor a couple times. So what do you?
Yeah, that Adam and I talked about that a bit over Slack. He wrote the article on that, really good article, and I'm going with Jordan Eberle because I think the other 2 in that article were Dunn and Grubauer, but Eberle because I think he has less pressure to score, and I think he'll get a lesser role. And older player, less pressure, lesser role, might open it up a bit more for him.
Who is one other player that fans should be watching that we have yet to mention?
Ooh, all right. I might have slipped up and mentioned him earlier, but we didn't discuss him. I'm going to go with Ryan Donato because I'm pretty sure he took less money this day in Seattle because he felt it was going to be, to paraphrase, it was going to be a good year for him goal scoring. Based on what we talked about, I don't really know and I would love to play him, but I don't really know where he fits above the fourth line. If he wants to put 15 goals in on the fourth line, more power to you.
Yes.
That would be a good year for goal scoring.
Yes. All right. Let's talk about some rookies. Pick one rookie or prospect that could surprise and make the roster out of training camp. You can't say Shane Wright because he wouldn't be a surprise, really.
I didn't write that down because I had a feeling you were going to say that. I'm going Riker Evans. I think that if he were to start in the AHL and come up halfway through the year, I wouldn't be surprised. But I've loved this kid since I started covering this team. He's been a regular in my Kraken prospect reports. And if they trade Vince Dunn and they don't bring back a roster defenseman, that knock on the door louder. Especially if the team's out of the hunt. Yeah. Why not give him some games? He's already signed. You're not going to lose him for a year anyway.
Yeah, no, I like that. I like that pick. Who will lead the team in scoring for forwards?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Oh, I thought you were going to ask.
Yeah. Oh, I'm leaving it open for you right there. Who will lead the team in scoring for forwards?
It's going to be Andre Burakovsky.
Love it.
And I think that he's going to do it in both categories, goals and assists. It's not going to be lopsided. I think he's going to be relatively even. If he gets 24 goals, I'm thinking, 28 assists, something like that. Except a bit more than the 30, early 30 goals, maybe 35 plus assists.
That would be nice.
That would be the dream for them.
And who will lead the team in scoring for defense?
Vince Dunn. I'm all over the place. I think the defense will be high scoring. Secondary assist.
No, Susie.
This is now the Vince Dunn show.
Story. That guy will let it fly. But
I love it. I love it.
Raise his trade stock if that's what it comes
down. What you want to trade him high. Might as well make him the best scorer on the team and defensive end. So on the defensive side, I should say.
All right. The ultimate question: where will the Kraken finish in the standings, and will they make the playoffs?
Okay. If they make the playoffs, they will be grabbing that threat of the 8th seed because some people decided to embody Jesus and just score all the goals and stop all the pucks. Now, you might not like this, and I apologize. I think 6th or 7th in the division, depending on what happens with Vegas, because, they have some great forward and defensive pieces, but even in net, I don't know what's going on there. And Vancouver, especially if they trade JT Miller. I just it might be my own not knowing enough about the team, but I have questions. I have things I need to see more from Vancouver
on defense. Yeah, I agree with that. With that.
On paper, I wouldn't say, the Kraken are overtly better than those teams. Definitely not Vegas. It just depends on how things are going to shake up through the season. And as we said, a lot of it depends on how certain players will develop more and if some of them will regress.
Yeah. All right, let's finish this quick fire round with one bold prediction or hot take for the 2022-23 season.
You thought I was going to say Vince Dunn traded, but I'm not going to that horse anymore. I don't know how steamy of a take this is, but I think they can get to 500. If they can weather now, please, you're listening, Dave Haxtell. Don't play Philip Grubauer every game for the first 2.5 months until Driedger's back. Just don't do it. Show that you trust your players enough, your backup goalie, whoever it may be, enough to go in there and win you games. Even if you're not doing too well out of the gate, you need to show your players that you're confident in them, that you have trust in them. And if they can get some semblance of consistency, goaltending, goals start coming in, and the defense is the defense, then I think you get to 500. And that would be good and bad. Bad because you're out of the Bedard, but good because you've taken bigger steps. And in my opinion, if they're 500, they shaved a year off their build based on who they brought in.
Yeah, that's a good point. Well, I mean, we'll see what happens. The Kraken are an interesting team coming into their second season because there is a lot of question marks, and they did improve. I mean, their forward group is a lot better. Their defense, like you say, has kind of is still, they added a couple guys. We'll see what happens there. And goaltending, huge question mark there too. So, like you said, lots of overlap between all three sections of the team. So we will see how that all goes. In coaching, we didn't even really talk. We did talk a little bit about the coaching, but
have to with this
that's
team.
another question mark too. So we will find out in about a month and a half, and training camp's coming up soon. So let's finish it off with what we usually do on our Hockey Writers podcast is our articles of the day, but we're not going to pick some. Sean, we're going to pick you. You're going to pick one article. It can be your own, one that you would like to feature.
So I'm going to go with a little preview. I did do a backup battle piece for the Kraken. It should be coming out on Wednesday, August 31st. And sorry, Hellberg, but to me, it's between Daccord and Jones. You have your veteran championship experience. He did make a second run to the Cup final with the Sharks that lost to now teammate Schultz. But Daccord, for him, it's the consistency. Mm-hmm. He will have to steal the backup role because to me, it's going to be Jones. But if that means that Daccord sits in the AHL for a full year, consistent year, takes them to the playoffs and maybe even on a run, that would be huge for his development. Very huge for his development.
Yeah, that's good stuff. So check out that article. Check out all the articles on the hockeywriters.com from the Seattle Kraken writing team. Sean, Adam, I believe you two are the only ones that write for the Kraken now. A couple other guys kind of, peek in there and do some stuff, but you guys are the main guys. So definitely check them out. Check out their podcast as well. What's Kraken is now an audio only podcast. It used to be on the YouTube channel, but they're still going strong on the audio side. So definitely check that out. That's usually every week on Wednesday. Toned it back a bit for the off season. I do have a face for radio, I've been told. And so during the off season, we toned it back a little bit, but we've been doing every week during the season. So be on the lookout for that. Yeah, awesome. Check out that for sure. Check out the Morning Skate, morningskate.io, and check us out for all the stuff that season preview stuff's going on strong at the Hockey Writers. So lots of stuff going on. Check all that out. Check out our Hockey Writers podcast. It usually goes every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Our preview shows will be taking over those spots, but we will also return for daily episodes when the season starts as well. So check all that out and tune in for our next season preview show coming up soon.